I feel like it's finally time to talk about the worst kept secret ever, Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag Remake. I know I'm probably the last person to the party, but with so much scary information floating around on YouTube and elsewhere, I just want to make a quick summary of everything we know so far and share my own thoughts on the whole thing. I don't want to drag this out too long, so let's dive right into the chaos. First off, let's talk about why Ubisoft is choosing to remake this game now, and why they picked Black Flag specifically. We obviously can't know for sure, but I think there are some pretty reasonable explanations. As you probably know, Ubisoft hasn't exactly had the strongest support from players lately. In fact, it's been a rough few years. Some people even say the company is dying, with no way back. Why is that? Well, it mostly comes down to the new direction Ubisoft has taken with the Assassin's Creed franchise, the RPG-style games. These titles have gotten mixed reactions. Longtime fans of the series tend to dislike them, since they move far away from what Assassin's Creed used to be. Stealth is better there, parkour feels clunky, and the modern day storyline, along with the easy lore, has become more of an afterthought. But it's not all bad. The RPG entries do have strengths. Their open world freedom and exploration have appealed to a whole new kind of player, and that's exactly Ubisoft's dilemma right now. If they return to the original Assassin's Creed formula, they risk losing these newer players, but if they keep going with the RPG style, they'll continue to disaffect the original fanbase. Ubisoft made a desperate attempt to balance both sides with the release of Assassin's Creed Mirage, a game heavily marketed as a return to the roots. But let's be honest, it didn't really satisfy either group. So what's the solution? Yep, an Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag remake. That might actually solve Ubisoft's problem. You can have a big open world that you can just explore for hours, but still have a linear story and more of the original Assassin's Creed mechanics. But I also believe there's another big reason they have decided to focus on remakes right now, and Black Flag in particular. If you didn't already know, Ubisoft has been struggling financially and has suffered some major losses in recent years. And let's be real, it's no secret that remaking a game is way more affordable than developing a brand new title from scratch. You can reuse parts of the old engine, some of the mechanics are already built, and you barely need a writing team because the story already exists. It's simply much cheaper to remake an existing game, and yet the potential sales can be just as strong. Plus, there might be a few other reasons why this specific remake could turn out to be even more profitable for Ubisoft, and we'll get to those in just a moment. But to do that, we need to take a look at all the leaks and rumors surrounding this game. I'm just a human, with the power of ChatGPT, but we don't need to talk about that right now. So yeah, I probably missed a few rumors here and there, or maybe even skipped some on purpose. I'm not going to spend my entire summer break recording this video, you know. What I will do is include everything I think actually has some value for this discussion. The Black Flag remake was first mentioned in June 2023 by a site called Kotaku. They are pretty well known in the gaming industry, have a history of reliable reporting and usually have solid sources. According to their post, Ubisoft Singapore, which at the time still was working on Skull and Bones, potentially had another project lined up for when that game was finished. That project, the Black Flag remake. Kotaku said that information came from 2 Ubisoft employees who spoke to them anonymously. After that, well, we basically heard nothing for almost a year. Until we got the only real piece of official information to this day, a speech from the Ubisoft CEO, Yves Guillemot, in an interview. Sorry for the pronunciation, I didn't learn fluent French just for this video, that feels like way too much work, so that's one on me. Anyway, in this interview, which by the way was published by Ubisoft News, he said this. Firstly, players can be excited for some remakes, which will allow us to revisit some of the games we've created in the past and modernize them. There are worlds in some of our older Assassin's Creed games that are still extremely rich. And yes, you heard that right, Ubisoft News. Honestly, maybe they should just stick to making news, because lately they haven't exactly proven themselves as the best at making games. Just kidding, their news sucks too. But this one is gold for us, because it confirms that remakes are coming. And honestly, what Assassin's Creed setting is richer in potential than the Caribbean? Probably none. This obviously increases the chances of Assassin's Creed Black Flag Remake, but it doesn't confirm it. There are still other rich settings we have had in the Assassin's Creed series that Ubisoft could revisit. So let's fast forward a few months to October 4th, 2024. On this day, Insider Gaming, in a post written by none other than Tom Henderson, dropped a new update. Now, if you're not familiar with him, Tom Henderson is one of the most trusted names in gaming leaks. Insider Gaming, and Henderson in particular, are known for having extremely reliable sources and often being the first to break big stories. And this time, he didn't disappoint. According to the post, the first look at actual in-game content for the Black Flag Remake with a codename of Obsidian had been shown internally. But here's the thing, it wasn't a full gameplay reveal. What was shown was, or at least how I interpreted it, just a graphical improvement showcase running on an upgraded Anvil engine. Most likely, this was meant to highlight the updated visuals rather than reveal any new mechanics or story changes. We also got something even more interesting, the first potential release date. According to Henderson, Ubisoft was aiming for late 2025. However, he also noted that the delay of Assassin's Creed Shadows could push that launch window into early 2026. The next big day in this whole mess came on January 15th this year. On that day, two different websites, Gaming Bible and Notebook Check, both reported on the Assassin's Creed Black Flag Remake, and their coverage lined up pretty closely. What they said was basically this: this is not just a graphical upgrade. The remake will feature a more dynamic environment and more complex combat system. They also confirmed what Insider Gaming had previously reported, that the game is being built on an upgraded Anvil engine. I don't think that's too much to be excited for. The upgraded engine is probably the same as they use for Mirage and Shadows. Now we're getting into the really good stuff, the kind of leaks that basically makes this confirmed. Recently, we have had some leaks that are a bit different from previous ones. These aren't reports from gaming blogs or big news outlets. Instead, they are more like teasers from people who are very likely to know what they are talking about. First up, we have the cosplayer Rick Bower. Some time ago, he posted on Instagram a series of photos showing a new version of Edward Kenway's Ropes, the main character from Black Flag. Now, at first glance, this might not seem like a reliable source. Honestly, when I first heard people talking about it, I thought they were just trying to pull content down to thin air. But here's why it's actually a pretty solid lead. Rick Bower has a long history with Ubisoft. He regularly attends their showcases, and he and his team have even created official commercials for Ubisoft in the past, specifically by showcasing off new Assassin's Creed robes before a game releases. And here's the kicker, these cosplay outfits tend to be a one-to-one recreation of how they appear in the game. So a brand new design of Edward Kenway's robes is very likely to mean there's actually a brand new in-game version, and that points directly to the remake. But it gets even better. I will not voice over this part of the video because then I will probably just overanalyze everything, and I just want you to make your own thoughts about all this. So I will show some clips and photos and stuff like that, and you can just analyze it for yourself.
Have you beaten the game?
I have a while ago. It's been a minute, but
Well, you might have to beat it again.
this is true. I gotta run through all of them again.
But especially this one. There's a reason I say that, but I can't say anything.
I did notice some people asking about why there's no Edward. There's reasons. There
I
are
keep
reasons.
replying saying there's more coming. It's a line.
Like, yeah, I mean, how many you want
We're
us to
not
release
stopping.
at the same time?
Would you like us to release like 14 at the same time? That would kill me.
Well, Assassin's Creed fans out there, you should be aware that there is something going on with Edward. So obviously we can't.
Has that been announced?
I think so.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I saw rumors about it.
Okay.
No, I definitely saw an article about this.
Okay.
Just one more thing before we continue that I couldn't find any actual evidence of, but it is in other people's videos, so if you want any kind of evidence, just go check it out on someone else. And that is that the Steam page for the Black Flag original game has been updated, so now there is like a folder inside of, I don't know what everything is called in Steam, but there is a folder with some new stuff with like difficulty settings and save any time and stuff like that wasn't in the original game. So what can we make of all this? We can pretty much say the remake is real and it's coming pretty soon. We can also almost guarantee that something's gonna happen this month, probably at Gamescom. If you don't know what Gamescom is, it's a gaming festival held August every year, where some of the biggest studios reveal some of the upcoming games. And this year, Ubisoft is gonna attend the festival. That, combined with the fact that Rick Bower randomly mentioned Gamescom in one of his Edward Kenway posts, makes me believe we have something coming at this event. It could also give us a clue about the release date. Ubisoft usually shows off their game 4 to 7 months before release. If that pattern stays the same, and they reveal it for the first time at Gamescom, we could expect the game to release around New Year at the earliest. That timeline also makes sense if Ubisoft Singapore really is in charge of making the game. Their previous title, Skull and Bones, was released in February 2024. A game is typically finished a few months before launch, with a final stretch used for marketing and trailers. So it's possible that part of the team had already started working on Black Flag before Skull and Bones even hit the shelves. If that's the case, the remake would have been in development for about 2 years now, which is pretty reasonable when you think about it. They can reuse some of the old mechanics from Black Flag, assets and even models from Skull and Bones, as well as game logic from the engine, and especially Assassin's Creed Shadows, so it shouldn't take any longer. That's also why I said earlier that this specific remake could be a clever move by Ubisoft from an economic perspective. It's simply much cheaper for them to remake Black Flag, because they can reuse almost all of the models from Skull and Bones, since that game also takes place in the Caribbean. But what can we expect from the actual game? How will the gameplay look like? Will there be any story changes? As we have discussed, this game will most likely be running on the newest version of the engine. And really, why would it not? I can't see any reasons to go back to an older one. That already gives us a few clues about how the gameplay might turn out. If I'm not completely wrong, Valhalla, Mirage and Shadows all ran on Ubisoft's Anvil, an upgraded version of the old Anvil Next 2.0. If the Black Flag remake is built on the same foundation, we can expect at least some of the key features from those games to appear here as well. Of course, it's not guaranteed. Ubisoft Singapore could choose to create entirely new mechanics from scratch, or even pull out some from older Assassin's Creed titles. But I still want to go over some few interesting features that I personally think have a decent chance of making it into the game. The first one might be a bit of a stretch, or maybe not, I'm not sure actually. What I'm talking about is Valhalla's weapon customization. In that game you had access to a huge variety of weapons across many different classes. You could mix and match them in endless combinations. So why does this have a chance of making it into the remake? Well, one of the biggest complaints about the original Black Flag was the lack of weapon variety. You basically had one weapon type, swords, and you were limited to dual swords only. Bringing Valhalla's weapon customization into the mix could fix that. On the other hand, pirates in the golden age of piracy didn't really have a massive arsenal beyond what we already saw in the original game. But still, maybe they could allow you to combine different lengths of swords, knives and daggers to make it feel a little more free than it used to be. Honestly, I'm not sure, but it's fun to think about. Next, with Mirage, it isn't a lot either. Though that game was a move back to the roots, the environment was so different from what Black Flag is that I don't think much will carry over. One thing I can think about is the combat, and yeah, I know a lot of people weren't fans of that. And to be fair, it wasn't amazing. But I still think it's 1,000 times better than the RPG combat system that we got in Origins and Odyssey. So if they bring back the RPG stuff, I'm blaming you guys. Personally, I really hope they go with something closer to the original Black Flag combat. It might have been a bit too easy, sure, but they could fix that with proper difficulty settings. And we have kinda already seen signs that difficulty settings will be a thing this time, so it shouldn't be an issue. When it comes to shadows, there might actually be some stuff we will see in the AC4 remake. That's because the world design has one big thing in common, a lot of open landscapes. In other words, I think we might see the stealth system from Shadows show up in Black Flag. I don't have much to say about it since I haven't played Shadows yet, but from what little I have seen, it seems pretty solid. With that said, the stealth in the original Black Flag was amazing too, it just wasn't tempting to actually use. And now when we are about to start poking around in the little that's left, please consider subscribing. I have put a lot of time into this video, and as you probably can tell, I feel super uncomfortable talking in the mic like this. Now the last thing I want to bring up about what the game might look like is maybe a bit of a stretch, or probably a lot of a stretch. In one of Rick Bower's posts, one of those we took a look at earlier, he asked his follower this: remake or sequel, what would you choose? Like I said, maybe I'm just overanalyzing this because of the other stuff he teased, but this kinda feels like a hint. Like maybe we are not just getting a remake, but some kind of sequel, a DLC, or maybe Ubisoft expanding the story in some way. What would that look like? Well, the most obvious idea would be to finish Edward's story. We basically already have it in a novel called Forsaken. I haven't read it myself, but I do know the main plot. Edward becomes an assassin in London, and eventually he is killed by some mercenaries sent by Reginald Birch, one of the people he trusted the most. That could make a really cool sequel, following Edward as he deals with the consequences of his past and the betrayal from someone close. Who knows, maybe that could tie in even more with the rest of the AC universe, like Assassin's Creed 3 or even Syndicate in this case. Another possible sequel, and one a lot of fans have been asking for, would be a game where Edward's son, Haytham, is the main character. That could actually be a really solid alternative. We haven't had a game from a Templar perspective since Rogue, so it might be refreshing to switch things up again. Haytham is also just such a strong character. He's serious, cold, calculating, but still somehow really likable. And imagine diving even deeper into his point of view. What shaped him? How did his relationship with Edward affect him? And what really made him embrace the Templar cause? It wouldn't just be a cool sequel, it could give us a much deeper view of the Assassin versus Templar conflict. That kind of sequel would be incredible, but sometimes hope can get ahead of reality. And with something this big, it's important to be aware of what could go wrong. So let's dive into some of the risks and concerns I see. Like we talked about earlier, it's probably Ubisoft Singapore that's handling this remake, which in itself is a bit worrying. Their only major project so far has been Skull and Bones, the other pirate game set in the Caribbean we mentioned earlier. There is just a small problem with that game. It sucks. Skull and Bones is full of invisible walls, The world feels lifeless and every mechanics is like a downgrade from Black Flag. A downgrade even though it's released 10 years later. That alone says a lot. But there's even more. Ubisoft Singapore is also incredibly slow. Skull and Bones was supposed to be a multiplayer naval PvP add-on for Black Flag, but after more delays than GTA 6, it spiraled into its own standalone game. And now that studio is in charge of remaking one of the greatest pieces of gaming history. Hopefully they can't mess this up too badly, especially if the remake is built on top of other Assassin's Creed titles, and not anything from Skull and Bones. But honestly, I'm a little bit worried. Now you might be saying, well, if they mess it up, I just play the original instead. And who could have guessed, here comes our other problem. The original Black Flag might not even be available when the remake drops. Ubisoft, that are more greedy than Scrooge McDuck, don't want to pay the server fees to keep these games up anymore, the old games that don't have many players anymore. There is this one game called The Crew that was permanently taken down, even if you bought it once. And many players fear Black Flag might be next. And I know this sounds crazy, but this is completely legal. If Ubisoft decides to remove this game, they haven't committed a single crime. There is discussions that there might be a law in the future that prevents companies from doing this, but right now we doesn't have a law like that. And the remake will probably be released before we get a law. This is also really hard to prevent, since it's almost impossible to make an offline patch of the game. I have tried for literally 1.5 months, but just failed, because the servers always need to be connected to the game. If it was any other studio, I wouldn't complain, because they won't remove the game, and then it's just good, so people can't pirate the game. Now this might be the end of one of the greatest games ever. So what do Ubisoft have to say about this? Well, their CEO, with a name I won't try to pronounce again, said in an interview that nothing lasts forever. And well, he's right, but it's just sick that you pay for a game that you're not even gonna be able to keep for a few years even. Me, for example, I bought Black Flag just the end of last year, so if it's gonna be removed now, I paid almost like, I don't know what it costs, but maybe $50 for absolutely nothing. I really hope Ubisoft won't do this to us. It's really easy to just make a patch of the game that doesn't need to be constantly updated to the servers, and therefore they don't have to pay the server fees. So there is literally no problem. But still, he is low-key kinda right that nothing lasts forever. Not games, not chips, and not YouTube videos. So if you have enjoyed this YouTube video, you know what to do. And I'll see you in the next one. If there is a next one. I'm totally out of ideas.